My mother didn't just ignore me every Thanksgiving. She treated my existence like a minor inconvenience. For over a decade, while my golden child brother hosted lavish holiday dinners, I wasn't even invited to sit at the kids' table. But the moment I bought a luxury lake house, everything changed. She showed up unannounced on Thanksgiving morning, not with a turkey, but with a moving truck, a set of fake ownership claims, and a smug smile, ready to take my home for her favorite son. She thought she was about to pull off the ultimate family heist. What she didn't know was that my attorney, the county sheriff, and a local news crew were waiting right behind the front door. The look on her face when she stepped inside was worth every single dollar. My name is Sophie Bennett, and at 35 years old, I've finally come to accept a painful truth. My mother, Evelyn, never loved me. To her, I was just a minor inconvenience, an invisible ghost in her pristine household. My younger brother, Julian, on the other hand, was the golden child who could do no wrong. While Julian was showered with praise, expensive gifts, and endless affection, I was expected to sit quietly in the background and expect nothing. This toxic dynamic was never more obvious than during the holidays. For over a decade, Thanksgiving in our family was a grand, lavish event, always hosted for Julian, focused entirely on his minor achievements, and paid for by our mother's adoration. I wasn't even given a seat at the adult table. Eventually, the invitations stopped coming altogether. Year after year, while they celebrated over roasted turkey and fine wine, I spent my Thanksgivings completely alone, listening to the silence of my tiny apartment and wondering what I had done to deserve being erased from my own family. Instead of letting their rejection break me, I used it as fuel. While Julian coasted through his 20s relying on handouts from our mother, I put my head down and worked relentlessly. I founded a small tech consultancy firm, sacrificing weekends, sleep, and a social life to build something of my own. For 10 long years, I saved almost every dollar I earned, quietly building a life of financial independence that my family knew absolutely nothing about. By 34, my hard work finally paid off in a massive way. I purchased a breathtaking $1.4 million waterfront property on Lake Tahoe, a pristine 3-story timber retreat designed to be my personal sanctuary. I wanted a peaceful haven where I could host warm, quiet holidays far away from the shadow of my past. Of course, a purchase like that doesn't stay secret forever. Word eventually reached my mother through an extended family member who saw the public property listing. Almost instantly, the mother who hadn't spoken a word to me in 3 years suddenly remembered I existed. But it wasn't a sudden burst of motherly affection that brought her back into my life. It was pure, unfiltered greed. It started with a phone call on a rainy Tuesday evening. I stared at the screen in disbelief as my mother's name flashed across the display for the first time in 3 years. When I answered, there was no apology, no acknowledgement of the silence, and certainly no attempt to make amends. Instead, her voice dripped with a terrifyingly fake, motherly sweetness as she announced that she wanted us to reconnect as a family for Thanksgiving. Her sudden warmth immediately set off alarm bells in my head. As the conversation went on, her true motives became painfully obvious. She barely asked how I was doing before steering the topic directly toward the lake house. She probed into invasive details. Was the home solely in my name? Was the property currently vacant? What kind of security system did I have installed? She tried to frame it as innocent curiosity, but her tone was sharp and calculating. A few days later, my gut told me to check the official county registry. What I found made my blood run cold. Someone had recently filed a suspicious administrative claim against my home using a forged signature. My mother wasn't coming to share a holiday meal. She was laying the groundwork to steal the only thing I had worked my entire life to achieve. Refusing to play the victim, I immediately hired a corporate attorney and a private investigator to dig into what was happening. What they uncovered was even worse than I'd feared. Julian was drowning in debt from failed business ventures, and my mother had devised a desperate, illegal scheme to save her favorite son. Together, they had forged a transfer claim, attempting to fraudulently put the Lake Tahoe house into Julian's name. Their plan was simple and ruthless. Show up on Thanksgiving Day with a moving truck, occupy the property immediately, and force a lengthy legal squatters' battle that would drag on for years while Julian lived in luxury. My attorney advised taking immediate legal action, but I wanted absolute closure. I wanted them caught red-handed where they couldn't twist the story or play the victims. Instead of confronting them over the phone, I decided to set the ultimate counter trap. I coordinated with the county sheriff's department, presenting all the investigators evidence of identity fraud and forgery. The sheriff agreed to assist in a sting operation. To make sure they could never lie their way out of it, my lawyer also brought in a local investigative news crew who were running a story on rising real estate scams. Everything was set for Thanksgiving morning. They thought they were walking into their dream home, but they were actually walking straight into a trap. Thanksgiving morning arrived with a crisp, freezing fog rolling off Lake Tahoe. Sitting in the dark living room of my lake house, I watched through the window as a massive commercial moving truck pulled into my driveway, followed closely by my mother's polished luxury sedan. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my mind was laser-focused. I watched as my mother and Julian stepped out of their vehicles, practically glowing with arrogance. Julian was barking orders at the hired movers, telling them where to unload his furniture, while my mother smoothed her designer coat, looking around the estate as if she already owned it. She held her head high, ready to present a fake eviction notice meant to throw me out onto the street. They walked up the grand porch steps, laughing and chatting about how they were going to redecorate the master suite. Julian pulled out a set of keys he had illegally obtained from a shady locksmith who had bypassed my front lock. My mother turned to him with a triumphant, wicked smile and said, "It's finally ours, sweetheart. She'll never be able to afford the lawyers to fight us." With a sharp click, Julian unlocked the heavy oak front door. My mother pushed it open and proudly stepped across the threshold, fully expecting to find an empty house and a broken, weeping daughter. Instead, she stepped directly into the blinding light of my trap. The foyer exploded into light as bright camera flashes illuminated their shocked expressions. My mother froze in mid-stride, her triumphant smile instantly disintegrating into pure terror. Standing directly in front of her was the county sheriff flanked by 2 armed deputies, my corporate attorney, and a local news reporter with a full camera crew recording every single second. "Evelyn Bennett? Julian Bennett?" The sheriff's voice boomed through the high-ceilinged entry. "Don't move." My attorney stepped forward, announcing a formal court injunction. Before my mother could open her mouth, the sheriff began reading them their Miranda rights, declaring that they were under arrest for criminal attempt to commit grand larceny, forgery, and felony trespassing. Her face went deathly pale. All her usual composure completely shattered as she stammered, trying to claim there had been a terrible mistake. "It wasn't my idea!" Julian suddenly shrieked, backing away toward the open door while pointing a shaking finger at our mother. "She made me do it. She hired the locksmith. She forged the signatures." In a matter of seconds, under the blinding glare of news cameras and the stern eyes of law enforcement, their united front completely dissolved into desperate blame-shifting. My mother looked at her golden child in absolute horror as the deputies stepped forward and snapped heavy steel handcuffs around both of their wrists. The legal fallout was swift and devastating for both of them. Faced with overwhelming video evidence, recorded phone calls, and digital records, Julian took a plea deal to avoid heavy prison time, receiving 5 years of probation and a permanent felony record that destroyed his career. My mother was sentenced to 18 months in state prison for grand larceny attempt and property fraud, her high society reputation completely ruined. As for me, I finally got the peaceful holiday I had always deserved. That Thanksgiving, My lake house was filled with the laughter of real friends, warmth, and genuine love, a true family built on respect, rather than blood. I reclaimed my peace, my home, and my future. Have you ever had a toxic family member try to take credit for your hard work or steal what was rightfully yours? Comment your story down below. I read every single one. And if you enjoyed this story of ultimate justice, make sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell for more real stories. Thank you for watching.